Welcome back to Abe's Exoddus. Today we're going to be going to the Mudamu vaults. Here it is. Kind of different from the Mudachi vaults. Still kind of a cavernous area, but obviously a lot more inward. Not a lot of open space going on. Seems really cramped. So, Mudamu Vaults has the paramites, and paramites act the same way they did in Odyssey. We have some helpful rhymes to teach us how they work. So if you're just facing one paramite, it's not going to attack you. You can't talk to it. It's just kind of a weird, shy spider creature. But if you start to corner it, much like the rhyme says, you're not very bright. Where Abe was standing is probably the farthest you can get when it comes to cornering a paramite before it lashes out at you. And then when you run into more than one paramite, then they get a bit more confident in themselves and they start attacking you. And there you go. Very simple, you know, just most of the time it's going to be more than one paramite staring you down. Now, much like Scrabs, you can also possess paramites, and unlike Scrabs, as a paramite, you have a lot to do. Paramites can do a lot when you possess them. First, they can eat slurgs, and eating slurgs is actually very useful because when a paramite eats slurgs calmly, the slurgs don't make any noise unless you step on them. Then they make noise. And they're pretty handy. They're a lot more agile than Scrabs are, so you'll be seeing a lot of that. Like here. This is a good presentation of how that works. There are some webs that we can go up on, and it gives the paramites a lot more access to new areas. As a Scrab, we didn't really get much to do. You know, it's mostly just horizontal areas, and they could hop, and that's about it. The paramite being able to pull those pulleys, I guess? Rings? Yeah, rings. To pull those rings is going to be the basis for a lot of puzzles here. They're a lot more muted compared to the puzzles of the Mudachi vaults. Which I was unfairly heated about. I'll admit that. I was being a bit too harsh, and some people have told me better ways of solving the puzzles in the Mudachi vaults, which I greatly appreciate. I really do. You know, like I said, sometimes I don't always know the best option in solving these puzzles, so it's good to know the better ways to do it. Now, one thing to note is that even though chanting does make paramites stay in one place, most of the time when you're going to be chased by paramites is going to be places where there's possession orbs, and if there's a possession orb, it's not really going to do much for you, so don't even really try doing that. Now, another thing about paramites that is much different from Scrabs is that paramites are actually very social to other paramites. They don't kill each other on sight like Scrabs do. And as a result, you get to have a lot more interesting interactions between paramites, which is really cool because as a Scrab, you only got to say 2 things. As a paramite, you get to say up to 6 things, which isn't really as extensive as Abe's vocabulary, but it's cool that you can do it. And it's also really helpful when it comes to taking care of fleeches. The only problem is I have a hard time remembering what phrase is said sometimes because paramites don't speak English. So if you don't remember the exact button prompts, it might get a little confusing. Now, you could take care of these Fleeches by attacking them yourself, but if you just get your friends to do it, attack them. Well, here I am trying to figure out the right button to press. No, still not getting it. No, that's the work button, and there. See, I can't attack them immediately. There we go, that's the button. See, that's attack. And also when you say attack, it is also acts as an attack. A very quick one too, so it's handy. And that's what it looks like when something's eaten by a Fleech. It's not Abe getting eaten by a Fleech, but it's the same animation more or less. I kind of feel bad for having that paramite killed off like that. But regardless, if we got our friend to do it, the friend would not have gotten eaten for whatever reason. Fleeches don't attack paramites that are not under your control. Maybe it's something they can sense, I don't know. But it lessens the unnecessary murder of the environment in this game. Another thing that comes back from the first Oddworld game is the meat from Paramonia. Now, this guy, I think he might actually have let me take another step, but I didn't want to take any risks, so you can just possess him and make him run past you, and it's no big deal. But the meat also comes back. We haven't had to throw anything in a while. Oh, here's this. Talking about meat specifically. They have it all. But we haven't thrown any rocks in a while. But we get to do that again with meat, and it acts mostly the same way. Meat isn't used to blow up rocks or anything. It's mainly just a bait to get paramites away from a corner, or to distract them from attacking you. I think both vaults are designed to, like, as if you were playing through them first instead of second. So you might see some repeating messages that might seem kind of redundant at this point. Like, for example, oh, if you're invisible, nothing will see you. It's like, that's kind of a given at this point, but, you know, I guess they can't be too safe. And this one, especially, we've been doing it for a while now, but the game kind of assumes that we haven't really seen that much yet. It is kind of a dick move. If you didn't know these three paramites were down here, you really would have had no way to go get the invisibility back, and then you would have just had to die. This room is if you jump off of the highest point in this room to the door, that's too high of a jump and Abe will die. And that's happened to me more times than I would like to admit, so don't do that. I don't know what this room is for. It just kind of seems like a big fuck you. Excuse my language. Because if you scare those bird portals away, you're basically dead. And that's it. That's the first portion of the Mudamu vaults. As you can see, it was a lot shorter than the Mudanchi vaults, and we have our same arrangement of rooms here. Except this time around, it goes by a lot quicker this time. There's no room within rooms. And it's nice. I guess making me talk about things makes me realize other things, because I do think that Mudamu vaults might actually be more fun to play than the Mudanchi vaults. Go figure. So our first room is pretty interesting. I think I kind of make the mistake of going from the hardest room to the easiest room, because this is definitely one of the more complex areas of the Mudamu vaults. If you go straight to the foreground, you're not going to last long, because you're just going to be stopped by Fleeches and paramites and walls blocking your way. You have to go to the background first and take care of all the Fleeches. And doing that is to utilize many of your paramite friends. Luckily, paramites don't trigger pressure switches, which is really helpful both while possessing a paramite and when you're running away from them. One thing I forgot to mention is that the Mudanchi vaults and the Mudamu vaults, they aren't just named for that because they sound cool. Well, maybe it is because they sound cool, but it is actually based off of Mudokon tribes, the Mudanchi tribe and the Mudamu tribe. The Mudanchi tribe was generally a war tribe, which makes sense. It used the scrab as its sacred animal, which is a scrab is a very aggressive animal. And the Mudamu tribe was more of an insular tribe. It's just like to stay indoors in these vaults where they were kind of secluded away from everyone else. So it makes sense that the paramites kind of represent them. The paramites are also very secluded animals and just kind of stick to themselves. It's cool. It's a cool little comparison, attention to detail, I think. Now the rest of this room is just a lot of reflex work. You have to make sure you don't run over a panel, which is really hard, and if you're not used to the timing, this might take a couple of tries, but if you have that down, then you're through this room. This Dome Vaults also has these like rock mushrooms. That's nice. Now here is another one where we get to see a bit of a preview of what's to come. Although it's honestly a lot less intimidating than it looks. So these fleeches, for example, they're mad dumb because you already have an easy way to pass them by, and they can't climb up here. At least I've never seen them climb up here. So you don't really have to worry about them. What I'm doing here right now is actually totally unnecessary. I just wanted to spite these fleeches and eat them myself. Because honestly, man, fleeches are so lame. We're better off without them. If you notice the top half of the screen, there is some green there. And you know when there's green, there is a secret. Paramites just get antsy when you're around them. I guess it makes sense. They're animals. They have like a sixth sense. Now here we see our first example of a Mudokon with Stockholm Syndrome. Angry Mudokons will sometimes be doing work. And if you tell them to stop, they won't listen to you. You might make them stop for a second, but it won't really amount to much. So you have to get to them to make them stop, generally putting your life at risk. Now this is also where I remembered having to actually shred fleeches, because this time they do actually follow you down. But if you just stay in the corner that I stay at, they'll end up killing themselves. So it's really not that much of a problem. I don't remember where I read this, but there we go. Now he's better. I think it might have actually been in the Abe's Exoddus instruction manual, where they justified the Mudokons working against you by them believing the propaganda that the industrialists, the Gluckons essentially, have posted up that Abe was an actual terrorist. Like, they actually think Abe is actively against their better interests, so they try to hurt him. I don't know why that makes them mad, per se, but that's the reasoning that is given. The Abe's Exoddus instruction manual is actually really interesting, and if I find a PDF of it, it has to be around somewhere. I should definitely post it up, because it's... I poked through it a bunch when I was a kid, and it was a fun read. I would say it's up there with the Donkey Kong Country instruction manual. I know, two completely different games, but work with me. Now the rest of this room is just getting through these paramites and fleeches while you're invisible. If you know where you're going, again, it's not much of a problem. There's a weird pattern design in the background there, but I'm not really sure what it's supposed to be. Alright, now this is probably the room where you possess paramites the second most. You gotta have to do a lot of reconning. That's what paramites do. They're really good recon things. Well, I guess slugs are too, but paramites especially here, because this is way too many fleeches for one place. I would not recommend waking up these guys. I've tried doing it before just for the heck of it, and it never turned out well for me, so I wouldn't really. Just don't do it, in my humble opinion. That's a tricky jump. Paramites, the way they walk isn't as good as Abe walks. They kind of have like half steps instead of full steps like Abe. So it's kind of easy to walk off a ledge. I never know what the best way to I feel like you should actually kill the paramite you're possessing in this room, but that just feels really mean, so I don't do that. Like I said, a lot less unnecessary killing of wildlife in this game compared to Odyssey. You may notice that when we depossess an animal, they don't actually get blown up. Apparently this is because Abe does get to choose whether he can actually blow up the creature he possesses or not. So I suppose it makes sense that for sligs and other things he may be able to possess, he does blow them up, but for paramites and scrabs, he's like, nah, it's chill. He's like, you don't gotta blow these guys up. They're minding their own business. They're having enough of a hard time with the industrialists. They're all fighting the same fight, when you come down to it. Except the fleeches. The fleeches are terrible, terrible little monsters. Alright, we are halfway done. Oh, I had to go to the bathroom. That's what that was for. Alright, this is a nice, simple room. What is it? Well, it's not a room where you can possess anything. It's a good old-fashioned chase room. All you gotta do, as soon as you take down that first lock, you just kind of have to go for it. Or is it? There is actually a secret area at the end of this. And boy howdy, is it a difficult secret area. Probably much like that one secret area in Mudamu Vaults, you have to know what you're doing as soon as you get it in, or else you're not going to make it. So again, it's not one of my favorites, but what can you do? Like that paramite, if you don't possess him right away, he'll die. And if you don't possess this paramite right away, you will not have a lot of time to pull that ring in order to get Abe to safety. And it doesn't help that grabbing onto the webs could be a bit of a, not random, but it's a bit tricky, it's a bit janky sometimes. And before we go up, I'm just testing out my voice abilities here, because this final section of the secret requires you to efficiently talk to these two paramites in order to get the two Mudokons in the background to safety. And I screw up once, which was very scary. Oh, yeah, first I pressed down. That was the big screw up. See? If I waited a second longer, those Mudokons would have been crushed. So this is... I'm not a big fan of this secret. Also, not a big fan because when you save those Mudokons, you can't really... You're kind of indebted to possessing at least one of those paramites, so it's just kind of take... I mean, it's like 5 seconds of your time, so whatever, but still... And this next room is pretty simple, I think. Like I said, I kind of went in reverse order here in terms of difficulty. Although I do think... This is weird, by the way. You go in the background, you see this area, And when you go through this door, I mean, you have this whole big transition thing, but it's just back here. I mean, I think they just wanted you to see the room next to the right of this, but it was just a weird... Well, you didn't have to put that door there, I guess. So yeah, this room, you have to just trap the fleeches. I'll admit, I did not know how that I had to do that my first time through. So this room was a bit more difficult for me than it should have been. So if you don't know what you're doing, then it could be a little tricky. But once you do, it's... I mean, I guess that's the problem with a game that is primarily puzzle-based. And this is scary because I'm always paranoid that when I steal meat from a paramite, it'll just attack me out of raw anger. That's not the throw button. That's the throw button. Abe can fart, but that's not really important right now. Now we move on to our final room. And what a final room it is. It's not... It's weird because it's not a hard room. Because Abe has a very low chance of dying in it, but it can take a while. So the majority of this is spent possessing a paramite. The paramite, much like the room that was we finished a couple minutes ago, is going to be clearing the way for a lot of us, but you have to go for a bit of an obstacle course here, which is really neat. I like this a lot. In the PC version of the game that I'm more familiar with, the hitboxes of these falling rocks are kind of screwy, so sometimes you can be standing at the edge of a platform and the rocks will still hit you, and that's really irritating because even though Abe can't die, if a paramite dies here, you have to start from the very beginning, and not even quick saving will really help you, so it's just kind of a weird... It's just a weird thing. Kind of helps that you can see the rocks before they fall. I'm not sure if that's something you're actually supposed to see, because you can't see them like that in the PC version. Like they don't like stay suspended like that. But I'm not going to complain. It helps me out. And that's it. The only danger for Abe really is falling in the next room over. Like, that's literally the only way you could die in this room. So if that happens, I'm not going to judge you. Everyone has their bad days. That's it for all the rooms, and now we can enter the trials of the Mudamu vaults. Once again, it'll be just like the Mudanchi trials, in which it's just a lot of running and like split second like moving. So there's not a lot to explain. I'll just be quiet up until the final couple seconds of it. Notice again we see remnants of the Necrom mines in the background. I think it's a lot more obvious in the Mudamu vaults than it is in the Mudanchi vaults. Once we go through this next room, we'll be treated to a cutscene. That won't be the end of the video. There will be a little bit of gameplay left, but enjoy what you see because it's a very good cutscene. You can't possess those paramites. It's rude.
So, whatever you are, did you know that the Gluckins are using your bones to make Soulstorm brew?
Of course we do. That's why we need you.
What could I do?
You shut down Rupture Farms. You can shut down the brewery too.
You want me to shut down Soulstorm Brewery? Okay, I'm afraid.
Don't worry. We can give you powers. Yeah, steering powers. Yeah.
You sure about that? I've been through this before. Back when I got the power to shut down Rupture Farms. That's when I first saw the creatures of Oddworld as they used to be. Before we chopped them into tasty treats, we had forgotten our past, and now it was costing us our future. And even our soul.
Come on up. No and improved.
Well, what is it?
Don't think. Drink. Ah, come on. Do it.
Okay. At first, the Gluckins gave their brew away. Ooh, tasty. But once the Mudokons started drinking it, they couldn't stop. Then those Gluckins told them that if they wanted to work, they could have all the brew they wanted.
Only if you got a job.
They fell for it.
Step right up.
Oh!
I love his job. Step right up.
So now, the weirdos want me to destroy the brewery, but I gotta save the Mudokons there first. And I just got the power to heal Mudokons sick from brew.
And we're back from the cutscene, and we have this fancy new ring around us. This reminiscent of the Shrikle power back in Abe's Odyssey. We're back in Necron, but we can't really do much. All we can do is go back to our sick friends. But now we have this fancy yellow ring around us. Once we start chanting, they fart themselves to recovery, and everything is A-okay once again. Now, if you're doing an all-kill run, you could probably kill these guys, but you want to do it after they turn these valves, because... And for some reason, they're right back into working in Necrom, even though they never worked in Necrom previously. I'm being a twerp about this. Anyway, go ahead and save them, and that'll be end for the Mudamu vaults and for Necrom in general. When we get into this well, we'll be going into what I consider to be the best part of the game, bar none. This entire second third of the game is easily the highlight of Oddworld. So I'm very excited to show you it and to talk about it. Until next time, I am Metroixer. That's a quick save. You didn't see that. And this has been Oddworld Abe's Exoddus.